Are we live?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You can go ahead and put a description if you want. I don't know if it'll affect the live feed or not. But, are people coming in?
Oh, yeah.
Alright, so, while we're getting people to tune in, I'm your host, Timothy Holt. You can check out these videos as well as some other commentary videos on 90 and Out at youtube.com. That's 90, the ampersand sign, out, which is my channel. And check those out. So, we're good?
There's still no one in
There's no one? We should probably put a description. Can you type a description?
I don't know how to.
Oh, okay. Hold on.
Oh, there's one person.
I'm not sure either. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and do this. So today is Wednesday, and we are continuing our series with the youth group in this way through the book of Proverbs. A few weeks ago, Governor Wolf here in Pennsylvania decided that there was a scary virus that warranted recommending mass shutdown of public gatherings, including services at churches. Churches are exempt from the mandated order, but they are recommended. So our church has taken that and opted to go online for our gatherings, our meetings, and our services. So I'm Timothy Holt, and this is 90 and Out with our youth group at 6 Points in Parker, Pennsylvania. Once this threat has subsided and we are resuming services at normal at the building at 6 Points, feel free and join us every Wednesday at 6:30. You can also have services on Sunday mornings. So quick shout out to our pastors, Dave and Diana Hutch. They are big support and inspiration. Also, behind the camera is Tori. She is going to be handling your comments and interactions on Facebook Live in that way, relaying those to me. So, this is a collection of 66 ancient writings known as the Christian Bible, and we are going through the book of Proverbs. Proverbs, most of them are credited to King Solomon of ancient Israel, and the one we are about to go through is one of those. There is a running theme in the book of Proverbs, and that is four main characters. There's the father. He's the one who is giving the advice that's written down. There's the son, the person who's supposed to be receiving that advice. There is Lady Wisdom, who is wisdom is a reoccurring theme. It's wisdom writing, it's poetry, and written in short segments. And wisdom is something that is encouraged and to be sought after and often portrayed as a woman, a beautiful woman. And then there is the fool. And as we pointed out 2 weeks ago, in youth group, anytime we see the term fool, foolish, or foolishness, or some derivative of fool, we can substitute a more modern word that has very similar meaning. And what is that, Tori? Oh, now she doesn't want to talk. She's making faces behind the camera. It's great. It's stupid or moron, idiot, imbecile. I mean, you can pick your descriptor, but they all describe the fool. And being foolish or being the fool is not recommended, with pretty staunch recommendation against it. So, we are looking at chapter 22. I'm going to be reading from the New King James Version, English translation. Feel free and follow along with any translation you like. Also, if you're not using the New King James, please leave a comment in the comment section and let me know which version you are using. Last time we did this, we had several different versions. New Living Translation was one of them, I think. New International. I like the Lexham English Bible. However, I only have that in a digital copy on my phone, which we're using as a camera right now. I also enjoy reading some paraphrases like Amplified and The Message, depending on why I'm reading. So I encourage you, see the differences, and if we can piece it together. Just a review, last time we covered Proverbs 18. We did not get together in this format last week, which would have been Proverbs 20. So this time we are covering Proverbs 22. And Proverbs 22, just reading ahead here, has one of my all-time favorite ancient proverbs in it. So if you're involved in children's ministry, or you've ever been involved in children's ministry, youth ministry, I'm sure you're familiar with this ancient proverb. It gets repeated a lot in those areas of ministry. So, without further ado, I don't want you to take my word for it. I want you to pick it up, read it for yourself, and follow along with me. A good name is to be chosen rather than great riches, loving favor rather than silver and gold. The rich and the poor have this in common: the Lord is the maker of them all. A prudent man foresees evil and hides himself, but the simple pass on and are punished. By humility and the fear of the Lord are riches and honor and life. Thorns and snares are in the way of the perverse. He who guards his soul will be far from them. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. The rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. He who sows iniquity will reap sorrow, and the rod of his anger will fail. He who has a generous eye will be blessed, for he gives of his bread to the poor. Cast out the scoffer, and contention will leave. Yes, strife and reproach will cease. He who loves purity of heart and has grace on his lips, the king will be his friend. The eyes of the Lord preserve knowledge, and he overthrows the words of the faithless. The lazy man says, "There is a lion outside. I shall be slain in the streets." The mouth of an immoral woman is a deep pit. He who is abhorred by the Lord will fall there. Foolishness is bound up in the heart of a child. The rod of correction will drive it far from him. He who oppresses the poor to increase his riches, and he who gives to the rich will surely come to poverty. Incline your ear and hear the words of the wise, and apply your heart to my knowledge. For it is a pleasant thing if you keep them within you. Let them all be fixed upon your lips, so that your trust may be in the Lord. I have instructed you today, even you. Have I not written to you excellent things of counsels and knowledge, that I may make you know the certainty of the words of truth, that you may answer words of truth to those who send to you? Do not rob the poor because he is poor, nor oppress the afflicted at the gate, for the Lord will plead their cause and plunder the soul of those who plunder them. Make no friendship with an angry man, and with a furious man do not go, lest you learn his ways and set a snare for your soul. Do not be one of those who shakes his hands in a pledge, one of those who is surely for debts. If you have nothing with which to pay, why should he take away your bed from under you? Do not remove the ancient landmark which your fathers have set. Do you see a man who excels in his work? He will stand before kings. He will not stand before unknown men. All right, that is Proverbs collected number 22. So 2 verses will probably stick out to anyone who's been familiar with children's ministries, youth ministries. Clearly it's verse 6, and the other one that many a parent has claimed. I know I heard that many times when I was a wee little lad, and I was misbehaving. And that is 15. So I'm going to start with those 2. Again, if you want to cover a specific proverb and get my take on it, or give me your take, leave it in the comments. We getting any comments?
Kim said I'm on. Myron Gilbert said, "Hey, good to see you are doing well."
Hi, Myron. By the way, Myron, if you're still watching, hopefully you are, you might recognize this shirt. It's a throwback from my time at Westdale as a children's pastor. Myron designed this shirt. It says Fishers of Men on the back. It's a pretty cool shirt. I like it. Just a little shout out to him. So, Kim, glad you tuned in. And so we're going to start with training up a child. So at the top of the stairs going upstairs at the house, by the way, if you hear some crazy noise, that is our cat. He just found something on the floor just off screen, and that is hilarious.
I can grab the lid.
All right, so it's on a wall art at the top of the stairs leading upstairs to 2 bedrooms at the house here. And that is to train up a child in the way they should go. And even when they are old, they will not depart from it. That doesn't mean they're always going to do what we want. I know my parents laugh quite often when I call them up and I say, "You're not going to believe what one of the boys did, or what Tori did," or "I can't believe that when they talked to me that way, they sounded just like I did." But it's about principles. Those principles that we learn when we're children, when we're teenagers, they're going to carry on through the rest of our lives. And then that goes into 15, which is...
He's under the chair.
Yes, we have a crazy cat. Alright, so... And that is, foolishness is bound in the heart of a child, but the rod of correction will drive it far from him. This is a running theme throughout the Proverbs. I heard a pastor once put it this way. He said, if we are free to make wise decisions, then we must also be free to make foolish decisions. Because many times it's in our foolishness that we gain wisdom. And I think that's what the rod of correction is. So when we have that natural consequence, last week my Zach, he was driving and backed out of a parking lot parking space, and there's another driver who was backing out at the same time. Neither one of them were paying attention, and yep, you guessed it. What always happens when 2 people try to occupy the same space at the same time, it's a collision. I know some people call it an accident. I call it a collision because it was clearly avoidable if either of them, preferably both of them, were paying attention. But now he has a small dent in the rear fender of the car to fix. It's that natural consequence. Also, there's that discipline involved. When children are younger, it comes in a variety of ways. I know as teenagers, it's harder to discipline them. It's harder to encourage them. I had a conversation with one of them, and not that long ago, and he did not want to go with us to this place. He didn't want to be involved. He wanted to stay home by himself. And I sat down with him on his bed and said, hey, look, the more you say yes to me, the more likely I am to say yes to you. And I didn't tell him he had to go. I let him make that decision, but I strongly insinuated that it would be a lot more likely for him to get privileges and responsibilities that he wants in the future if he takes responsibility now and exercises that discipline. The thing with teenagers that fascinates me, it fascinated me when I was a teenager, it still fascinates me with now that I'm working with teenagers and have 4 of them in this house. And that is, they're all different. You can have a 16-year-old who says amazingly wise statements, and then 10 minutes later, they're doing something horrendously stupid. And that just amazes me, that pure impulsiveness that most teenagers have. You can have that really shy guy in the corner who doesn't want to be involved. He doesn't want to be there, but for whatever reason he's there. And then all of a sudden something will click in him, and it's like, whoa, what happened? So we definitely need to be giving that correction. Sometimes that's a heavy correction. Sometimes that's a painful correction. But most of the time it's just that general guidance of, hey, why don't you come over here? Why don't you do this with me? Several teenagers that I've had the privilege of being involved with at church and in other aspects find it fascinating when we're at a church function, because it doesn't seem to matter, especially at dinners. They find out very quickly when they're around me that if there's something that needs done, I'm going to be quick to volunteer a teenager to get it done. Whether that is helping set up for Vacation Bible School, or that's setting up sound, microphones, and audio, whether that's doing basic cleanup and tear down, even washing dishes. Recently, a couple of months ago now, I guess it's been, one of those individual teenagers was with me, and we were asked to be at the church to do some coleslaw preparation, and she ran with it. As soon as she was shown how to shred the cabbage and add all the ingredients together, she just was off to the races, and it was great. And I did not hear a single complaint about the coleslaw the next day either, which is great. A lot of people liked it, but it's because she did that, and that is wonderful. Verse 24 sticks out to me here, and that is, make no friendship with an angry man, and with a furious man do not go. And then carried on into 25. Lest you learn his ways and set a snare for your soul. When I was younger, I was prone to anger. I had a very difficult time controlling my anger when I was younger. I wasn't a teenager. I was a preteen. And it got me into a lot of trouble. I spent a year at a Christian school. It was 3 grades in one classroom, 5 of us total. I was the only one in my grade. And during that school year, my perspective changed on life. And it was because I didn't have those friendships and involvement with those people who were prone to get under my skin. It was amazing. But I'm sure everyone watching this, whether you're watching it now or you're watching it on replay, later can think about that angry man. It might be a woman, but that person who's just always in a bad mood. They seem like every time you're around them, nothing's going well. They complain, they mumble, they grumble. It's just, what could go wrong now? Man, today's just so horrible. I'm sure everybody knows that guy or that girl, whether it's at work, whether it's at school, whether it's on your Snapchat feed, no matter what, you know someone like that. And if you hang out with them long enough, before you know it, you're going to be emulating what they do. You're going to be emulating that. Fear and anxiety. At work, there's a running joke about nurses in psychology that work in a psych center, and that is, how do you know the difference between a patient and a nurse at a psych center? Well, one's wearing scrubs. Just let that sink in. Now, don't take that joke the wrong way, but a lot of nurses at psych centers are a little off kilter, and it's because they're around psych patients all day, every day, and that rubs off. Vice versa, however, when I was a teenager, there was a couple at a church. Everybody I knew called them Mama and Papa. I honestly couldn't tell you his first name because everybody I knew called him Papa Boots. And however, I did realize her first name much later, and it was Mary Boots, and her husband. But everybody I knew called him Mama and Papa Boots. And they went to Westdale Church. And one time, Papa Boots came up to me. I was visiting that church when I was a teenager for some activity. And he said, if you want to get relationship advice, don't get it from your friends. He said, don't go to school and get it from the jock who has a different girlfriend every week. Don't get it from the girl who's got that reputation. He said, if you want a good, solid relationship and know what to do in a relationship, you find that old couple who's been married 50 years and you pick their brains. You have coffee with them, you sit down and just listen to their stories. He said, because just like you don't get financial advice from someone who's flat broke, you don't get relationship advice from someone who's constantly having different relationships. Because there's a reason why those relationships don't last very long. It's because they don't know how to make them last long. And if you want a long-lasting relationship, you get advice from that old couple. Because they might know a thing or two about being married for 50 years. And Grandma and Papa Boots, they gave wonderful advice. They were compassionate people, great people. And sometimes I do miss them. But if you're a teenager, a youth, and you want good, sound advice, don't get it from your friends, because most of the time they're not going to give you good advice because they just don't have the life skills yet, just like you don't. Now, that doesn't mean don't hang out with your friends. That doesn't mean don't socialize with them. Sometimes they might give you good advice, but definitely seek out a mentor, someone who can give you that life lesson of, you know what, I think this is a really bad idea, and they can tell you why. A friend of mine, he told me one time, while he was stabbing me, I might add, not literally, figuratively, he said, I said, "I thought you were my friend. How could you do this to me? How could you say that to me?" And honestly, I was screwing up big time. And he said, "Because if I wasn't your friend, I would have stabbed you in the back when you weren't looking. But because I'm your friend, I'm coming to you and I'm going to stab you in your face so you can see it coming, so you know what you're doing is wrong and correct it." And that stuck with me. I like how this chapter starts out. A good name is to be chosen rather than great riches. A good name. Reputation is key. I ran into, a couple of years ago, when I was visiting family, I ran into someone I went to high school with. And I laughed when we were talking because they asked how one of my older brothers was, but they didn't use his name. They asked how little Feifel was. Now, if you're familiar with Hubbard Radcliffe High School in the mid-90s, mid to late 90s, you might know who Little Feifel was. He got the nickname because, well, he was small. He is still my older little brother. However, I haven't heard him called Feifel for years. And that's how reputation works. This guy remembered him as Little Feifel, not as Nicholas. And that is because of his reputation of being small and scrawny. Other people. One teenager I know, he, in middle school, in 7th grade, had some pretty bad run-ins. 8th grade didn't improve. However, after 8th grade, he tried to change his persona. He tried to change how people viewed him, his reputation, and those events, that reputation of being a troublemaker, still haunts him years later. Excuse me. Still haunts him. There are things that I've done in my life that still plague me. Reputation is important. Our behaviors create our habits. Our habits create our persona, what people see. Some people laugh when they go out to eat with me because those cups with the little creamers in them, I'm constantly sorting. I try not to, but it's one of those little quirks that I have that they just have to be neat and in order, and that is a habit that I have. Have good habits.
Timothy.
What?
Pam said that the sound went off.
What do you mean?
Mm-mm.
Are we not getting good sound?
I don't know.
You there? Are we still live? Does it say we're live?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If you can still hear me, please let us know. Apparently somebody had some sound. Can we pull it up on something else and see if we have sound? We're going to see if we can correct that, if we're still having sound issues. Okay, alright, so maybe that was a buffer thing, I'm not sure. Hopefully it's working now. So, 13 sticks out to me, and that is the lazy man says, "There is a lion outside! I shall be slain in the streets!" And I find that comical because obviously the lazy man is using that as an excuse not to go to work, not to be involved, and to stay home and be lazy. Probably not an actual lion outside. So, 29 also catches my eye. We're going to talk about that. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Otherwise, I'm going to talk a little bit about 29, and then we'll be wrapping it up tonight. So, 29, do you see a man who excels in his work? He will stand before kings. He will not stand before unknown men. And I'm going to tell you about a guy who I respect, I look up to, I admire. When he was a teenager, he tried to be involved in various activities, including bull riding at one point in time. He did some street racing, which probably wasn't legal at the time. He will tell you that he was a chain-smoking alcoholic. Actually, I asked him one time how he would describe his teenage years, and he said he was a chain-smoking drunken alcoholic. I never knew that man, the chain-smoking drunken alcoholic. Him and his wife, actually, their oldest son, were given beer in a bottle when he was a baby, because that's just what they did. They were not good people of high regard. However, when I knew him, his life had changed. So had hers. His work ethic was impeccable. He was always on time or early to work. And that wasn't just, for his boss. That was also on the farm where he lived, with the animals that were raised there, with the garden, with butchering of the animals, with all of the work entailed, including scooping the manure. It didn't matter what he was doing, he did it well, to the best of his ability. And when he left high school, he dropped out of high school when he was a senior, found out that he needed to change. Excuse me. So, he joined the Marine Corps. When he joined the Marine Corps, his life didn't change all that much. It changed a few years later, actually. 8 years in the Marine Corps, he went into the National Guard. Through the course of the next 30 years, over the course of 38 years, he got to meet presidents. He got to have dinner regularly with governors. He had opportunities that are mind-boggling for most people. This guy from Hickville in the boondocks, who his wife, the first time she met him, said, "You're the ugliest man I've ever met." And that should give you an idea of, who he was at the time. But he didn't stay that way. Do you see a man who excels in his work? He made mistakes, but over his life, over that 38-year period, he excelled at everything he did. I remember seeing him at church events and various activities, and he was always behind the scenes. He wasn't the guy in front of the camera like I am right now. He wasn't the guy up on stage behind the pulpit, but he was the guy who was making sure the church was clean. He was the guy who was making sure that campers at camp had delicious food. And I do mean delicious food. I still have people ask about that food, okay? But I remember teenagers, especially at camp, would hang out in the kitchen and help wash dishes and do food prep simply because he was there listening. And he would give sound advice. He had lived that lifestyle of foolishness and gained wisdom. And he was passing that on. So, by the way, many of you who might be watching this, who know me personally, can probably guess who I'm talking about. Okay? But he didn't come from wealth. He didn't come from all those opportunities just falling in his lap. It came from hard work. It came from that personal discipline of excelling at his work. It came from trial and error. It came from failing. It came from making mistakes and working beyond them. Risk adversement. So, with that, we're going to bring this to a close. And I want you, whether you're 5 watching this or you're 95 watching this, find someone who excels at what they do. And if you want to be involved in what they have and what they are doing, find the one who does it best and learn from them. Don't settle for mediocre. Don't settle for second rate. Don't settle for fear-mongering and hanging out with that person who's got the bad reputation, who's always grouchy, always grumpy. Go to the one who does the best and learn from them. Seek them out. And you know what? When they tell you you're screwing up, when they tell you you're messing up, don't get too hurt over it. Realize it's for your benefit that they're giving you that correction. And gain wisdom. So, any other comments?
Diana said great word.
Hi Diana, glad you tuned in. By the way, for those of you who don't know, Diana Hutch, one of our pastors at 6 Points, great lady. So find that if you want a strong relationship and your parents are divorced and you're, in a, messed up family, find that old couple that's been married for 50 years. They're still around. They're still out there. But you might have to actually look for them. And get relationship advice from them. If you want to be the best mechanic, don't settle for second rate. Go and learn from the best. If you want to be, a YouTuber, learn from the best YouTubers. But if you want to be wise, find the wisest person you know and study them. Because the more you study them, the more you hang out with them, the more they're going to rub off on you. One individual from ancient Israel that I love to study and look at has an entire book named after him. However, he's also one of 2 people in the Bible who do not have a father. He did not have a dad. He was the son of none, and that's Joshua, the son of Nun. Yeah, that's a pretty bad joke, I know. But when he was a youth, when he was a teenager, he had an opportunity, and he took it. And when everybody else stayed away from the temple, he was right there with Moses in the temple, right there, standing right next to him, and he couldn't get enough of it. And it shows. If you look at his biography, the book Joshua, of what he does, it's amazing. So, find that person. And we're going to close with this. I don't want you to take my word for any of this. None of it. Not a bit of it. I want you to look it up yourself. Read it for yourself. When I'm studying and not just casually reading, often I will casually read because there's so much in the Bible that's amazing. You want drama? It's here. You want soap opera drama? It's here. Okay. You want violence and gore? Oh yeah, it's definitely here. You want romance? There's an entire book about sex. Okay. If you want a romance novel, it's called Song of Solomon. If you read it and you don't blush, I don't think you're reading the proper translation. Okay. If you want salvation and redemption, it's in here. You want a hero's story and journey, it's in here. It's all here. But if you want to study it, I recommend getting 2, 3, 4 different English translations and comparing them. Because that's going to give you the best way of looking at what this actually says. So don't take my word for it. Don't take a televangelist's word for it. Don't take Pastor Dave or Diana's word for it. Although, they do have a lot of wisdom. But if you really want to know what this says, pick it up and read it yourself. And find that person that excels at their work, because they will stand before kings. They're not going to be nobodies. Why do we know who Steve Jobs is? Because he was the best at what he did. Why do we know who Bill Gates is? Because he was the best at what he did. Why do we know those people? Because they were the best at what they did. So be the best at whatever you do and seek it out. This is Timothy Holt with 90 and Out, 6 Points Youth Group. Pick it up, read it for yourself, and may God richly bless you. Are we good?
No.
No?